She is the woman who became the ultimate symbol of the 1990s, an actress, model, and activist whose image in a red swimsuit on Baywatch was broadcast to over 1 billion viewers worldwide. Beyond the glamour, she would go on to become a best-selling author, animal rights advocate, and a surprising late-career critical darling. Pamela Denise Anderson was born on July 1, 1967, on the Pacific coast of Canada, specifically in the small mill town of Ladysmith, British Columbia, which served as the stark, unvarnished backdrop to her earliest years. It was a childhood marked not by the glamour that would later define her, but by a complex matrix of economic struggle and profound psychological distress. Pamela has recounted growing up in an environment where her family, though loving, navigated the volatile financial landscape of blue-collar life, far removed from the lavish opulence that Hollywood would later project onto her image. This early financial scarcity was compounded by a hidden personal agony. During her youth, Anderson developed a fundamental challenge with education: dyslexia. This neurological reality made the simple acts of reading and writing a perpetual, silent struggle, leading to feelings of profound inadequacy and shame throughout her schooling. The world of letters and structure was a confusing maze, forcing her to rely on other, more intuitive forms of communication and intelligence, a challenge often masked by the nascent yet undeniable charisma she possessed. Compounding this foundational difficulty was the staggering weight of childhood sexual abuse, a trauma she courageously revealed in her later memoir and documentary. This early instability, the hidden learning challenge, the financial anxieties, and the unspeakable abuse created a deep-seated need to compartmentalize and, perhaps, to escape, forging a resilience that was often mistaken for mere flightiness in the public eye. Pamela Anderson's ascent from a Labatt's beer girl in Vancouver to a global sensation was instantaneous, a phenomenon accelerated by her contract with Playboy and her defining role as C.J. Parker on Baywatch. This new level of fame put her on an inevitable collision course with Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee. Their courtship was a furious 4-day spectacle, culminating in a beach wedding in 1995. This partnership was less a marriage than a collision of two anarchic forces instantly canonized by the media as the ultimate it couple of the grunge and rock and roll zeitgeist. They lived a life of unchecked passion and rock star excess, yet beneath the tabloid headlines, a dangerous dynamic of hidden control and chaotic instability was taking root. The ultimate, catastrophic flashpoint came with the theft of their private home video. While a private, intimate exchange, its theft and subsequent digital distribution by Internet Entertainment Group, IEG, immediately transformed it into the world's first true viral phenomenon and a brutal violation of Anderson's sovereignty. The subsequent legal battle was a protracted, psychologically damaging fight against a burgeoning digital age Goliath. She sued IEG, but the stress became too great while she was pregnant with her second son, leading her to dismiss the case in 1997 to protect her unborn child. This dismissal inadvertently allowed the tape's monetization to explode, cementing the trauma and ensuring she received no financial restitution, a decision that would haunt her for decades and contribute to a complex, non-publicized pattern of financial duress and significant debt during her peak career years. The domestic volatility peaked in 1998, a period far removed from the public's image of endless partying. Tommy Lee was arrested for spousal battery, an act for which he was sentenced to 6 months in county jail. The conviction and the act itself were the defining, devastating culmination of the chaotic relationship. Anderson filed for divorce shortly thereafter, triggering a brutal and protracted custody dispute over their two young sons, Brandon and Dylan. This was not merely a celebrity split, it was a high-stakes legal war, publicly dissecting her capacity as a mother and his capacity for sobriety and parental responsibility. The conflict dragged on until a joint custody agreement was finally reached in 2002. Furthermore, Anderson made the shocking public declaration that she had contracted hepatitis C by sharing a tattoo needle with Lee, a visceral physical manifestation of the long-term painful consequences of their whirlwind existence. The divorce was not an end to the relationship, but a necessary separation from the legal chaos, leaving indelible public and private scars on her life and career, forever chaining her narrative to this era of violation, violence, and sensationalism. Following the final rupture with Lee, Anderson attempted to find love and stability, but the spotlight seemed to amplify every crack in her foundation. Her next most significant and public relationship was with musician Robert James Ritchie, professionally known as Kid Rock. Their romance began in 2001, characterized by a renewed commitment to the same kind of headline-grabbing rock and roll excess that defined her first marriage. Their relationship was famously on and off again, culminating in a brief 4-month marriage in 2006 that saw them exchanging vows 4 times in various locations to satisfy the sheer spectacle of their union. Their time together was an escalating cycle of public chaos, volatility, and conflict, with reports of instability and fundamental incompatibility. Anderson ultimately filed for divorce that November, citing irreconcilable differences. The relationship reached its chaotic peak after Anderson's surprise appearance in the Sacha Baron Cohen film Borat. Anderson herself claimed in her memoir that her husband's furious reaction to the film's premiere, where he became uncontrollably angry at her involvement, was the immediate trigger for their heartbreaking separation. The chaos continued even after the divorce, culminating in a highly publicized physical altercation between Kid Rock and Tommy Lee at the MTV Video Music Awards in 2007, an event that perfectly captured the exhausting, relentless cross-pollination of her intertwined romantic history, cementing her image in the eyes of the public as a magnet for drama. A mandatory aspect of this biography is to detail the impact of the deaths of key partners. In the case of Pamela Anderson, the specific narrative beat of key partners dying has not occurred with any of her most high-profile husbands, Tommy Lee, Kid Rock, Rick Solomon, or John Peters. The tragic narrative for Anderson is defined instead by survival and the emotional weight of her past. She did experience a profound emotional loss and tragedy with the passing of her close friend and influential fashion designer Vivienne Westwood, who died in 2022. Westwood was a mentor and a powerful voice who helped inspire Anderson's final creative and personal renaissance, particularly her decision to embrace the makeup-free look. The passing of an influential figure like Westwood, who championed Anderson's true self, served as an emotional catalyst for her next chapter, a death that propelled Anderson's commitment to authenticity. The absence of a major husband's death forced Anderson to confront her past not through external eulogy, but through a radical form of self-eulogy and personal reclamation, which became the central theme of her late career creative output. Throughout her career, Anderson faced relentless media scrutiny, not only for her relationships, but for her physical transformation. The spotlight relentlessly tracked her choices regarding plastic surgery and cosmetic procedures, subjecting her to waves of mocking and unforgiving judgment for conforming to and then later rejecting Hollywood's punishing beauty standards. She has publicly expressed regret over certain procedures and, in a powerful act of defiance against the industry she once fronted, began to intentionally walk red carpets and attend major events completely makeup-free. Beyond the personal scrutiny, she faced significant financial and legal controversies, including a highly publicized tax lien issue from the IRS in 2009, which put her financial stability under harsh media glare and required her to aggressively settle her debts. It was in this environment that she began to cultivate non-entertainment business ventures, planting seeds for a more sustainable future. Two significant non-entertainment ventures have been instrumental in this shift. Launched later in her career, Sansi represents her personal pivot to a minimalist, authentic beauty philosophy. This venture is based on plant-based, clean ingredients, directly channeling her new nature-focused lifestyle on Vancouver Island and capitalizing on the intense public interest in her makeup-free look. It is a calculated and authentic brand extension. Embracing the domestic homesteader aesthetic of her life on her family farm, she launched a successful lifestyle and cooking show on Hulu/Food Network and released an accompanying cookbook focused on plant-based recipes. This led to a surprising, specific business venture, Pamela's Pickles, an artisan line rooted in her family tradition of preserving food, offering a tangible, commercial product that directly counters her previous hypersexualized image with one of wholesome, approachable domesticity. Anderson's most calculated and riskiest career move was a profound shift away from the B-movies and television shows of her past toward the legitimate stage and serious independent cinema. In 2022, she made her Broadway debut as Roxy Hart in the musical Chicago. While critics initially viewed it with skepticism, Anderson's performance was met with surprisingly strong critical praise, recognizing her raw vulnerability and stage presence, a major step in repositioning her artistic credibility. The ultimate, career-defining triumph, however, came with the 2024 independent film The Last Showgirl, directed by Gia Coppola. Anderson's performance as Shelley, a fading Las Vegas dancer grappling with the end of her career, was universally hailed as a career-defining, deeply affecting dramatic turn. Critics, including major outlets like the New York Times, called her performance dazzling and noted that it had single-handedly redefined how she is viewed as an actor. The film received immense critical traction, culminating in a Golden Globe Award nomination for Best Actress. This nomination, alongside a Screen Actors Guild, SAG Award nomination, and the prestigious Art of Light Award, was the highest level of formal critical recognition of her career, validating her move from pop culture punchline to serious, accomplished actor and writer. The final, age-defying comeback that truly cemented her reinvention was not a music tour or an album, but a radical act of narrative control, the 2023 release of the memoir, Love, Pamela, and the accompanying Netflix documentary, Pamela, A Love Story. This was Anderson's massive, late-career project, a deep, unvarnished dive into her own story, told solely through her perspective and co-produced by her son, Brandon Thomas Lee. The technical success was rooted in its unflinching authenticity. The documentary utilized her own archives, diaries, and handwritten notes, making it impossible for the media to sensationalize the content further. The narrative was literally in her hands. Commercially, the documentary was a huge success for Netflix, generating a massive global cultural moment because it provided the long-awaited context and humanity behind the two-dimensional sex symbol. This reinvention didn't just reintroduce her, it retroactively healed her past persona, reframing the scandals not as her flaws, but as violations perpetrated against her. This reinvention was the ultimate, authentic closure, granting her the freedom to move forward as an author, advocate, and serious artist, with the support of a public that finally saw her as a survivor, not a spectacle. Pamela Anderson currently resides on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, the very region where she grew up. Her lifestyle is one of intentional simplicity and domesticity, a deliberate pivot away from the relentless, chaotic pace of Hollywood and Malibu. She lives on her family's property, tending to her garden, cooking plant-based meals, and focusing on sustainable living. This return to the land is a core part of her current identity. Anderson continues to work as a critically acclaimed actor, building on the success of The Last Showgirl and her foray into mainstream Hollywood in the forthcoming Naked Gun reboot with Liam Neeson. Her professional focus is now a careful balance of acting and her entrepreneurial and advocacy work. She is a fierce and long-standing animal rights activist, using her platform to campaign for organizations like PETA on issues ranging from anti-fur campaigns to environmental conservation. She has solidified her role as an author and wellness entrepreneur with her beauty line and culinary projects, embodying a new kind of celebrity defined by authenticity and environmentalism. Pamela Anderson's enduring legacy is that of the ultimate cultural cipher of the late 20th century, who became the improbable oracle of the 21st century. She was initially defined as a two-dimensional sex symbol, the ultimate commodified fantasy of the Baywatch era, and a tragic casualty of the Internet's birth. Yet, she transcended these reductive labels. Her place in history is secured not by her fame, but by her survival and subsequent narrative reclamation. She is the icon who demonstrated the brutal cost of female objectification in the digital age, only to spend her later life dismantling that very system from within. By embracing her true, unvarnished, makeup-free, and dyslexic self, she transformed from a blonde bombshell into a profound chronicler of personal trauma, a respected artist, and an advocate for authenticity, forever redefining what it means to be a famous woman who lives long enough to tell her own epic story. And so the curtain falls on the life, or rather the chapters, of Pamela Anderson. We have tracked her journey from the gritty, unromantic poverty of Ladysmith, British Columbia, where the hidden challenge of dyslexia often eclipsed her brilliance, to the blinding, often unforgiving lights of Hollywood. The facts of her life, stripped from the sensationalism, tell a story of profound endurance. This is the woman who survived the theft and global distribution of her deepest privacy, the infamous sex tape, which became a legal quagmire that contributed to significant financial conflicts and a brutally messy multi-year divorce and custody battle with her first husband, Tommy Lee. We saw her navigate the turbulent public chaos of her second major relationship with Kid Rock, a brief marriage that imploded under the weight of external pressures and fundamental instability. Yet the ultimate testament to her will was the deliberate, audacious career shift, a calculated move away from the caricature. Her success on the Broadway stage in Chicago was a powerful first step, but her stunning, critically acclaimed performance in the film The Last Showgirl delivered the final, undeniable proof of her artistry, garnering a Golden Globe Award nomination and cementing her place as a serious actor. Her reinvention wasn't a PR stunt. It was a deep, sustained commitment to authenticity. The launch of her non-entertainment ventures, from her clean beauty line Sanzi to her celebrated cooking show and artisan Pamela's Pickles, demonstrate a sustainable pivot to entrepreneurship rooted in her new, makeup-free, back-to-nature lifestyle on Vancouver Island. Crucially, it was her own memoir and the Netflix documentary, Pamela, A Love Story, that served as her ultimate, age-defying comeback, a technically and commercially successful act of narrative control that retroactively reclaimed her story from decades of violation and judgment. Today, Pamela Anderson is not merely a retired icon. She is a dedicated animal rights activist, a published author, a successful entrepreneur, and an acclaimed actress, residing quietly on the Vancouver Island homestead that grounds her. This is the story of a woman who was written off, commodified, and judged by a world she never fully understood. Her enduring legacy lies not in the red swimsuit, but in the radical act of survival, the courage to show her scars, own her narrative, and finally choose herself. If the details of this epic, tumultuous, and ultimately triumphant journey resonated with you, if you found yourself intrigued by the psychological depth and strategic reinvention behind the sensational headlines, then you will find more stories like this on our channel. Click comment below to share your thoughts on Pamela Anderson's greatest triumph. Subscribe to our channel for more intensely analytical documentaries on the lives and legacies of icons who defied the script. And remember to hit the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of history, unvarnished and untold.